Well, a court here in Germany has handed down a 2-year suspended sentence to a 97-year-old woman in connection with the deaths of thousands of people in a Nazi concentration camp. The defendant was found guilty of being an accessory to murder for her role as a typist at Stutthof camp. Her lawyers had argued it could not be proved she knew about the systematic killings there of Jews and others during the Holocaust.
I wanted to live. I did not want to die. It was easy to die, and it was harder to live. Maybe that's what kept me going. I don't know. I was right in the end. I have 11 great-grandchildren. The 11th is on the way. I'm a rich man.
Being alive is still a miracle for Abba Naor. He's one of the last survivors of the Shoah. The 94-year-old regularly travels from Israel to Germany to tell his story of how he spent his teenage years in concentration camps. In 1944, the Germans deported him and his family from Lithuania to the concentration camp of Stutthof in what is Poland today.
When we were brought to Stutthof, we were still halfway normal. We were dressed in our own clothes. Until then, we lived with our family in the ghetto, even though we were locked up. But in Stutthof, we began to feel that we were no longer a family.
Naor's mother Hannah and his little brother Berale were deported to Auschwitz and killed in July 1944. That was also the time 18-year-old Irmgard F worked in Stutthof, serving as chief secretary to the camp's commander. F has mostly kept silent, stating she felt sorry to have been in Stutthof, but that she didn't know about the killing that was allegedly going on below her window. For Naor, what she said doesn't matter anyway.
If she did anything wrong, or committed a crime, why did they wait until today? You can't tell me fairy tales. The biggest fish will let go.
But for many survivors and their descendants, this trial is sending a signal, says lawyer Onur Özata.
They are not demanding these criminal proceedings as an act of revenge. It is also important to many survivors to testify, that is, to stand in court and tell their story, because what they also say is, we don't want it to be forgotten.
DW political correspondent Julia Saldelli has been following this trial. Julia, the defendant in the trial has received a 2-year suspended sentence. Some might consider that extremely mild given the nature of the crime. How did the court justify that sentence?
Now, this is what the prosecution asked for, and the court today went with what the sentencing that the prosecution had asked for, and that the majority of the plaintiffs in the case agreed with. The defense of the woman had asked for an acquittal, and this was the longest possible sentence that could be given without the woman, who is 97 years old, going to jail. So there was agreement also on the prosecution side and among the plaintiffs that this was an appropriate sentence, and the court basically ruled that the woman, who was a secretary of the commander of the camp, she was taking dictation, she was dealing and handling with the correspondence of the commander, and her window of her office looked over the concentration camp, so she must have known what was going on there at the time.
Okay, so there might still be some discussion about the sentencing. The survivor in our report, though, asked a very relevant question, one that many people will continue to ask. Why did it take German authorities so long to prosecute people who were complicit in the Holocaust?
After World War II, there were trials. There was a flurry of trials, especially against Nazi leadership, and that lasted for 5 to 10 years. But after that, a lot of the trials started to dwindle, and we've seen that not only for people who had important roles and who directly carried out murders in concentration camps, but especially for people who worked in concentration camps as guards or in other roles. They didn't undergo any trials until the 2000s, and there was one case that set a precedent, and that was in 2011 when a prison guard was convicted for aiding and abetting the murder of thousands of people. And in that case, the judge said that he held a shared responsibility towards the victims, and that was the precedent that made it possible for many other trials like the one that ended today to be possible.
Julia, thank you very much. Our political correspondent, Julia Saudelli.